expected to be doing today. I still need to work on some drum stuff, and I had some problems with my bike yesterday at the dirt jumps, and I'm going to be very frustrated about it today. I might actually start switching to Shimano's instead of SRAMs, but all that stuff aside, some of you guys know we've been waiting for this video for a very long time. This is a subject I'm extremely passionate about. I've published a ton on. I've done a million videos on, and this is my penance for indoctrinating people into the religion of pro audio, and I am an apostate of that religion now, and I am a lot more evangelical about using logic instead of listening to marketing nonsense. This one's about mic preamps, and some of you guys know that I've been publishing on this subject for a very long time. Let me see, I've actually put up many videos, charts, actually been testing these kind of things for quite a long time, and showing that there is no baby in that bathwater, and the emperor is in fact naked. But if you guys have ever watched Jim Lill's videos, he does a lot of myth busting, and he does it in an incredible way with really good production work and things I can't even touch. And like, he busted the whole Tonewood magic myth nonsense a long time ago, and I'm sure Paul Reed Smith is still salty about it. But he did microphones, he did amplifiers, and now he's doing, this is tested. Where does the tone come from in a microphone preamp? And man, we've been waiting for this for forever. So let's go. I'm just going to throw this thing in full screen and hit play here.
This is a story about how I, my friends, my heroes, and everyone else was completely, embarrassingly wrong about one very important thing about why microphone preamps sound like...
Not everyone else.
Embarrassingly wrong about one very important thing about why microphone preamps sound like they do, because nobody would do these tests.
Not nobody. This somebody did these tests quite a long time ago, and oh yeah, he's using REW, same as me, Room EQ Wizard. So that's the same thing we use to do these same tests. That's what these charts are from as well. Room EQ Wizard. All right. Great minds think alike. Some people will be mad. Okay. You guys know, if you've been following this for a while, not just some, lots of people will be mad. There's a lot of reasons for that. You know, this is religion. You're messing with people's religion. They've spent a lot of money on this, and so that's not at all fun for them that they've spent this money. It's gone, and they're not getting it back. Yeah, they're going to be mad.
My name is Jim. I'm this guy. You might know me as this guy. And look at these huge consoles! They're so cool and rare, and they were used to make my favorite music. My favorite engineers have told me how the preamps and Neve consoles are warm and fat, and the preamps and API consoles are fast and snappy, and the preamps and SSL consoles are tight and clear. And it always feels like an honor to be...
Don't notice those words, right? They don't mean anything. So, you know, you always watch these YouTube gurus going, yeah, this microphone is so much better than the rest of them. They never give you the numbers. Run a tone for them and see what they do. If they come out flat, they're the same. Sure, they may distort differently up at the top, but he actually did a video on guitar distortion, and it has a lot of parallels. Well, not just parallels, it's the same thing as these distortions that happen in mic preamps.
In the room with one of these. Preamps are something I didn't know anything about when I moved to Nashville out of high school. They were just kind of there, and they all seemed the same.
Spoiler alert, in case, I guess I should warn you. Spoiler alert, I don't know what he finds, but if he finds different, he's wrong. They're pretty much the same. If they measure the same, they sound the same. And most of them measure the same. And most of these guys out there trying to sell you mic preamps will not provide measurements. You know, every time people make a claim, provide the measurements. What are you talking about here?
Plug a mic in, turn it up, and whatever, it does its job.
That's right. So the ideal mic preamp by the very guys who designed these mic preamps that people think are magical, what they were trying to do, for the most part, and a lot of them use this exact term, a straight wire with gain. Your microphone louder. That's what a mic preamp is supposed to do. Over the years, especially during the 90s, there was all these marketing nonsense, and especially when eBay came out and just blew prices through the roof, that there's an idea that microphone preamps did something magical, and they did something different that they wouldn't ever say what it was. And I'm sitting there in the studio with an oscilloscope, and I'm testing it, and I'm seeing that this is a lie. They just came out the exact same as all the others. Sometimes there's like a transformer bump at the bottom, but that's easy enough to make with an EQ. If you do purposely distort, I'm sure some of them sound a little bit different, but like in any kind of distortion, which one's better? You know, but I sat there in the tech room with oscilloscopes with all the measurements, and I was looking at it straight in my face that these things, all this stuff was a lie. And yet I could not say that it was a lie. I was so indoctrinated in the religion of pro audio that I just, even though I was looking at the exact numbers, I still was believing something else. I'm very sorry for that.
So I just used whatever was built into the cheap interface I had. But the more I got into recording, the more I was taught about their differences. And I started to realize that if there are all of these tonal differences, then my preamps that were just built in with my interface would be holding me back. I wouldn't have that sound. So to get those sounds, all I had to do was buy a few of each type, and oh my God. Wait, really? 4,000? That's not even vintage.
Yeah, look how much this stuff costs, man. This one, you know, $500 a channel. I guess that's okay deal. But man, just use the ones you got. Like I don't know. Dante option. Not even gonna go there in this video.
Okay, Plan B. My favorite album was tracked through the Neve console at Oceanway, and I cared so much about understanding that sound. I did my research, and I learned that the console at Oceanway is a Neve 8078 from the 1970s, and I learned that Neve 8078 consoles have Neve 31105 preamp and EQ modules, and that's where the tone I wanted would be coming from.
So, you know, before you even do this kind of experiment, put this up again. Go to the hell. Let's just start from the bottom. Like, you know, you guys all talk how horrible Behringers are, right? Here's the Behringer XR18 preamp tested. Now I've zoomed this in crazy. This entire swing here is plus or minus 1 decibel, 1 dB, okay? And so this Behringer, this horrible Behringer, is down almost a decibel at 20 kilohertz. All right. At 10K, it's down 0.25 decibels. You're not going to hear that. Even so, for all intents and purposes, this is ruler flat. All right. Look at the deviation. It's nothing. All right. What is better than perfect? What is it about your mic preamp that you want it to do that is not exactly what you put into it? So what is always better? You could say, oh, if you put a bump down here, it's going to be warmer. Well, what if it's like a bass guitar with a really muddy string and the guy's playing flat wounds? You think that's going to improve the sound? I just say flat is better. So before you do any of this stuff, what is the end goal? What is it that you're aiming for here? What is better? What does better mean? What does good mean? To me, perfect is good. You know, but you know, when as a guitar player, I plug into a guitar amp, I don't want it to come out the same way as my guitar sounds. I'm trying to distort it. But you know, we're doing a lot of tonal shaping in order to make that happen. Is that what you're talking about with these mic preamps? I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know. Okay, so let's keep watching.
And as fate would have it, one day I saw a racked Neve 31105 preamp and EQ module from a 1970s Neve 8078.
Anybody who had to deal with these switches, these are the devil. These are the most evil things on the planet. No matter what you do, these switches break. And man, they're hard to get out of there without ruining the PC board and stuff. These things are horrible. These things are so horrible that I take little switches like this that you saw on this on switch this guy put, and I rewire all these switches onto on and off switches in the rack. If I have to use one of these things or build one for somebody.
8 console come up for sale, ready to plug in and play. And I made the most expensive purchase of my life so far, trading 6 months worth of rent for this preamp because I needed to know what this tone was. And I loved it.
Now, this guy's a insanely good player, man. So I can't play any clean stuff like this, but man, this guy rips.
It was fat, it was warm, it was vintage, it was oozing with vibe and cool factor, and I was really happy.
All right, again, if you guys still believe in Santa Claus and stuff, I don't want to spoil this for you. I haven't watched this video yet, but knowing Jim Lill and his honesty, I could tell you what's going to happen. So if you don't want to know that Santa Claus isn't real, come back in a minute, 30 seconds. As we shown ourselves, when I do a comparison between all these mic preamps, the Neves and everybody else, they're within a dB of each other. They're flat. There's not going to be any difference here. Unless something's broken. If something's broken, that's a different story. But there is no baby in that bathwater. The Emperor has no clothes. There's nothing magical happening with that mic preamp. And if there was, you wouldn't like it. You would not like something that breaks your stuff every time you put something in it, okay? I mean, aside from our distorted guitar amps. Or if you're trying to do something crazy, maybe you want it broken, but use a megaphone for that. Now here we go. You guys can tune back in now. Santa Claus is real.
Then after a few months, I got into a kick where I'd test things, and I thought, hey, why not test the Neve versus something silly, like the built-in preamps on that cheap interface I used to use.
All right. So use your ears, bro. And the ears tell you they're the same. So maybe we can get into some testing and see what the difference is. And there's a slight chance that, depending how this particular mic preamp was built in quality control, maybe the $1 billion Neve has lower noise floor. I kind of doubt it. I'm betting that this modern, cheap, 5-volt powered mic preamp has less noise. We'll see.
And they sounded the same. So I tried playing into every preamp I had.
So, you know, could just end the video there, and that's how it is, folks. That's all, folks. But you know, Jim Lill likes to do these crazy experiments, like when he made the speaker cabinet one, he just kept making bigger and smaller speaker cabinets and taking parts off them and stuff. So let's see what he gets into on here.
This video will be very different. With guitars and amps and microphones, I knew they sounded different and I wanted to find out why. With preamps, it kind of seems like they all sound the same, and it is extremely important to me that I find out when they don't, because 6 months of rent hangs in the balance. This is the quest for the missing preamp tone. Okay, one reason the internet says I might not have heard the difference between real deal vintage
Because you got to distort them. You got to operate them outside of your linear range, and then you'll get it. Or impedance. Different microphone impedance is going to do all this different stuff. Well, you know what? All these mic preamps had fixed impedance as far as I know.
Neve and garbage is because electric guitars have limited bandwidth. They
Recording an amp. The amps have pretty snappy. They may have limited bandwidth, but there's some pretty fast transients in there.
do not cover the full frequency spectrum that humans can hear.
But, you know, let's say that's true. Does it have limited bandwidth? Well, here we go. I'm running a sweep tone that goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So goodbye limited bandwidth. And yeah, look, that's the AMEC 9098 right there. It's a little bit of cheating going on, but it's only 1 dB. Do you want that? Maybe. Could it add hiss? Yes. Does it add hiss? Yes. All right. Sorry. I digress.
That's true. I do have a
So limited bandwidth is nonsense. Is out the window. We already tested that, but he's got Room EQ Wizard. He's going to test it himself, I guess. Let's see.
drum kit. The kick drum is the lowest thing I worry about, and the cymbals are the highest things I worry about. What if I mic those and split it out to each preamp and flip back and forth between them? What does that sound like? Okay, that's not it. So the internet says it might be hard for me to hear the difference on an individual track, but it's easy to hear the difference in preamp.
Stacking myth. All right. So I should have made a bingo card originally, and we're going to have operate outside their linear range, stacking myth. What else are we going to do? Slew rate. And I'm sure I'll think of him as too late after he already says them.
That's when every track is recorded through either something great or something crappy, because the character of the preamp builds up across the mix. That sounds like it might be right. It's just that nobody with the time to do that has ever had the ability to do it well, and
yeah, that's right. See, you got 5 billion channels out there, 5 billion videos on the superior mic preamp. Look, I just upgraded my mic preamps. Nobody but me and apparently Jim Lill and maybe Ethan Weiner actually tests this stuff and checks the claims these guys are making, and it comes out flat. But hey, Jim, not that you're ever going to see this, but I have interacted with you a little bit before, and I think credit should go where credit is due, because we did this a long time ago. Anyway, I'm sure somebody did it before me too, probably Ethan.
nobody with the ability has ever had the time. Until now, I'll take the bullet and be that guy. I recorded an entire mix, one mic at a time, with that mic split out to both the Neve and the garbage. I just need you in a car to run. I just need you in a car to run. You in a car to, you in a car to. I just need you in a car to run. Huh. Well, I didn't hear any built-up preamp character, but the internet says, oh, no, this mix is too busy and commercial. The preamp's character shines through on more delicate music.
You see, this is moving the goalposts. Let's see, what do we call this? If I go to logically fallacious, moving goalposts. Also known as gravity game, raising the bar, argument by demanding impossible perfection. I don't know about that. Description: demanding from an opponent that he or she address more and more points after the original counter argument has been satisfied, refusing to concede or accept the opponent's argument. Logical form: issue A has been raised and adequately answered. Issue B is then raised and adequately answered. Issue Z is then raised and adequately answered. Despite all issues adequately answered, the opponent refuses to concede or accept the argument. This is the moving the goalposts one. We see this a lot, right? Especially in the religion of pro audio. All right. Tripping on my own words.
Okay, I can give that a shot.
I just need you in a car to run.
I just need you and a car that runs. You and a car that
I guess I should just say, you know what? If you still want to believe in Santa Claus, don't watch this whole video because it's just going to keep happening, and you're going to get some spoilers. And that's, I'm sorry, I'm watching this video at the same time as you guys are, so I don't know when to warn you to plug your ears so that you can keep your bedtime stories.
in a car that I just need you in a car that runs.
Need you in a car that runs.
No, you hear the preamp character better when you push the preamps with heavy music.
Here we go. So that's the one we're talking about, the nonlinear. Now look, this is true. Different circuits do nonlinearities different. But which one's better? Is like, again, is a high-end boost always good? Is it always better? No. Is a low-end boost always better? No. But they're different. Different guitar amps sound different. Jim Lill actually showed why they sound different. It has to do with the circuit. It's not the name on the thing.
But I don't even listen to that kind of music.
Oh man, this is awesome watching a Nashville guy pull off some death metal. Yes. This is what you guys came here for, right?
I'm still not finding the missing preamp sound.
Because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
So the internet says maybe my examples just aren't the right examples, and I need to be more scientific.
He's been as scientific as you possibly can. If you ever watch this guy's other videos, man, he pulls he holds the variable constant and then changes one at a time. You don't get better than that.
Okay, I can do that. I can use Room EQ Wizard to send a sweep of every frequency humans can hear through each preamp and then show on the graph exactly.
Which is exactly what we did, right? This is what I did years ago, right? And again, Jim, you should give me a little bit of credit here. Did this a very long time ago, and it's been up for the whole world to see. Now listen, I took a lot of crap over this. I've gotten my stuff banned a lot. I've gotten flagged. I've gotten false DMCA'd for talking about lies about mic preamps. You're probably going to get it. I assume your comment section is going to look pretty ugly in a second here.
Exactly how different they are. For context, everyone I know says Neves are warm. They also say ribbon
What does warm mean?
mics are warm. So let's look at a graph of a Royer 121 ribbon mic, which is warm, compared to a Shure SM57, which is not warm. Okay, cool. The Royer has about 9 dB less energy up here and 9 dB more energy down here. So maybe the warm Neve has something that looks kind of like this when compared to the garbage preamp.
No. Okay, sorry. I hit pause too slow. These are going to be flat, man. They're going to be flat across the board. If the Neve has anything, maybe it's going to have a transformer bump at the bottom and some phasey nonsense at the top because of what type of caps they had at the time.
And they're the same. They're with...
You know, what explains this? What's his, I don't know what he, so this is SPL. Why are you doing SPL? You should just do dBs. I don't know what units this is. SPL. I don't know what fractions are in here, but it's not going to be much. So this crap mic preamp, the garbage mic preamp, the one that's in your Focusrites already, is ruler flat. It doesn't get better than that. There is no better than perfect. Perfect is perfect. You can say, oh, I'd like to add, but that's what your EQ's for.
within a quarter of a dB from 20 Hz.
Okay, so a quarter of decibel. And look, which mic preamp is more accurate? The cheap one. The cheap one is worlds better than the Neve. Not that you're going to hear it, but if you want to talk about accuracy and fidelity, the Focusrite mic preamp, today's garbage chip-based IC mic preamp, is going to blow the doors off of this ancient Jim Crow era where, colored people weren't allowed to drink at the same water fountains as the good folks. That's how long ago this crap was made. And of course, it's not going to be as good as today's stuff. I know that's the argument from novelty, but let's face it, we have the ability to have better tolerances nowadays. And so these chips are kind of pass fail. I don't know if you guys know quality control today works in kind of a different way. Some of these chips just, if they're out of spec, they just don't work. And so chances are you're going to get 8 of the same mic preamps today, which you didn't get back then. Neve likes to talk about how one of his mic preamps accidentally was up to 50 kilohertz or something. That if one did it today, they'd all do it.
Hertz to 20 kilohertz. But hey, maybe a dB is a lot, and that might mean half a dB is something. And a quarter of a dB is almost more than half a dB. So what if that is making a difference? So I dialed in an EQ to make a quarter of a dB dip here and here, and then flipped it on and off and listened to it. I just need you in a car to run. I just need you in a car to run.
So let's make sure we understand this before anything else. Right now, make sure you understand this. The Neve has more high end and a more accurate high end. I'm sorry, the Focusrite Scarlett, the cheap mic preamp, has more high end and more accurate high end than the Neve does. In order to compensate, he had to actually take a quarter of a dB off at 14 kilohertz on the Focusrite to make it as dull as the Neve. So, but it's only a quarter dB. You're not going to hear it anyway. And again, I know I keep tooting my own horn here, but this is the same thing as we found back then. There were some screwballs. Here, check this out. This is a M Audio Fast Track. But look, it's still within a 0.1 dB, man. This is not anything to write home about. But this was a bad one. I think there was another bad mic preamp, or is it? Some of them acted really bad on the DIs. Oh, this is the UK 1173. Yeah, that one was a little bit goofy. Sonoma Wireworks, super cheap. What else did I have? I know I had one that tested bad. I think it's like a Motu. Yeah, this was 896 Mark III. This was weird, man. But again, it's within a dB. I'm zooming way in to get the differences here. It's still, for any realistic thinking about this thing, is ruler flat. Look at that. It's not even a decibel of swing. All right.
And I couldn't hear a difference. But maybe I'm biased. Maybe I subconsciously don't want there to be a difference, even though I'm one of the few people who actually did get my hands on the real thing. So I took my subconscious out of the equation.
Remember, I know I keep saying it, but I had a stack of, look at those old pictures of me standing in front of racks and racks of mic preamps, testing them all,
Equation, and did a blind ABX listening test for, what's a good number, 100 rounds. I'm gonna hit show results now. And according to math, I would have been better off flipping a coin. But that's just my ears, and I'm just a performer. The internet still says that Neves are not only warm, but they are punchy. What does punchy mean? It means the preamps respond to the input and have subtle compression. Subtle compression? Geez, maybe I'm just not as talented or accomplished a listener and I simply can't hear the compression.
Yeah, I don't want the subtle compression unless I put compression on there. Like, see, this is, again, we gotta talk about or state what better actually means to us. Does better mean changing the sound? It might. I mean, I put a high pass filter on vocal mic because there's nothing down there that I want to amplify. So the high pass filter is going to make it sound better. But I know that high pass filter is there.
That Neve preamps have that garbage preamps don't. And luckily, compression is something I don't have to listen for to see if it's there. Check this out. This is a step test. It puts out higher and higher levels into a piece of gear and plots what it gets back. This perfectly diagonal line is when nothing is in the path, and it gets back exactly what it sent out. This hard horizontal line is distortion, where the piece of gear hits a ceiling and can't put out any higher level, no matter the input. And this slightly more diagonal line is compression. The higher the ratio, the more horizontal it is. A subtle compression might be a 2-to-1 ratio, like this. So let's see how the Neve responds to a step test. Oh, It's perfectly 1-to-1 linear until it hits a ceiling and wigs out, which would be distortion. So in other words, dynamically, it faithfully reproduces any signal with zero compression.
So Ministry of Brain Rot is saying, so the Neve sound is how the EQ behaves as you exercise its sweepable range. Yeah, well, EQ is EQ, man. Like that's and that's fine. If we're, like I'm saying, like, what do you mean by better? If you're just looking to amplify the microphone, better is perfect. And any deviation from that would be worse, unless, like I say, you put a high pass filter on a mic or whatever. EQ is a different thing. And every EQ circuit that we've ever had, even when we do them inside software, depending on how you're modeling the EQ, the sound of the EQ has to do with how you choose to introduce phase. It's proper but confusing to say that phase is EQ. I don't want to get into which Facebook group that everything is EQ. Shirts are EQ, whatever. But the sound of a Neve EQ, not that we don't know how to make that. See, this is the other thing. In this religion, there's an idea of a golden age. Most religions have like a golden age, and that things were made in the golden age, and everything has decayed since then, and there's no way to get back to that golden age. So hopefully you can find artifacts from that golden age and use them to achieve what they could do back then. And the part of that corollary is that today we can't create those things. No, we've already seen in his graphs and my graphs that we can actually create perfect today pretty easily. Not much issue. So the golden age, it's just a myth. It's kind of like one of them things that never dies, like noble savage myth. But we know how to make these EQs. We can create them now. We can model them. We could capture them. Remember, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, before all that Acoustica stuff came out, I actually did a stepped convolution capture of several Neve EQs, and hoping, but that back then there wasn't dynamic convolution; it was static. So you weren't really going to get the nonlinearities, but you were going to get the frequency response of what changed. And guess what? Until you really distorted these things, they didn't change. They're pretty linear.
Unless the signal is big enough to cause hard distortion, so there's no compression, not even subtle compression, just pristine.
Ministry of Brain Rot. What it's really about is that engineers knew how to set the EQ on the Neve to get things to sound good in the room. They understood its behavior on an intuitive level, not on a scientific level. Some engineers were insanely scientific back then, and some weren't. But either way, the result was the same. That they remember, these EQs are limited. I think this particular EQ that he's looking at has a gain, and I can't remember. I know there's a sweepable mid. I don't think there's a parametric Q curve on these. So you're kind of limited on what you could do with them. It's like on the Calrex as well. You had, at least that one, you had stepped frequencies you could mess with. So they knew how to use the EQ, and they get it to work. But it's always a compromise compared to a fully parametric modern EQ of today. But you had to get work done fast, and your main limitation was the tape itself. You had to be careful about that. Sometimes you might boost the crap out of treble on the way in, knowing that you could not even hope to turn it on. Yeah, so this is the religious thing. So in this, Ministry of Brain Rot is highlighting it perfectly for me. If you show them measurements that doesn't matter to them, as measurements aren't something you hear. Actually, you do, but we can go with that. If you gave them a digital plugin that could achieve the same EQ curves, they wouldn't be interested, right? That's right. And as it's not intuitive to use, they want a knob that does what they want it to do, I suppose. Sometimes that's true. Like, having that tactile stuff. I talk about, like, there's a reason. Let's see, is this even? the big room going. Yeah, there's a reason that there's mics on that room all the time. The drums are always mic'd in there because to me ergonomics matters. You know, if I don't have to go setting up all the mics and stuff in order to get a recording going, the artist is able to just worry about playing the song instead of waiting for me to set up microphones and things. Being able to grab a knob could be ergonomic for some people. Not for me, not for everybody. I'd rather just grab the mouse and do it, and so would a lot of people. But you know, some people like to turn knobs, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so, if you're willing to give up a lot of the tonal shaping ability of an EQ in order to have a knob that you can turn, and only have a limited set, and sometimes, you know, like people say, sometimes a limited set of tools makes the work go by. It definitely makes the work go by faster. Sometimes it makes it better because you're not worrying about, hey, should I do this? Should I do that? I've only got this set of things to work with. You know, it's like a certain bass or a certain guitar, like a P bass or Telecaster. It just sounds like you want it to sounds like it should. Jim Lil has a couple good videos on that, actually. Yeah. But, you know, none of this matters. This is, you know, what usually you look at religion, they call it apologetics, you know, defending the faith. You know, the standard ones are mostly feel kind of things, but, you know, music is about feeling, so it kind of matters. Yeah, as long as they're expensive knobs, not cheap ones. Hey, so like I was just talking about on the Neve switches, those Neve switches are so bad. The cheapest piece of crap electronics you could buy today blows the hell out of the best, most expensive Neve switches back in the day, and that killed me. And the knobs weren't so bad, but the switches, oh my, you just want to shoot yourself. Yeah, constraints can extract creativity, and that is true, man. Like, you know, you have a certain thing, and that's all you can do. And look, I've said it before. Back in the day when you were a guitar player and you could only afford like one pedal a month, you sat there with that pedal and you turned every knob. You knew exactly what it did because you played with that thing for forever, and you knew how to get sounds out of it because you knew every twist and every tweak. And so when you're given 1,000 pedals, you don't got enough time to spend with them and learn what to do. So yeah, constraints can extract creativity. True.
Signal reproduction until the signal is louder than it can handle, and then it distorts. But now the internet says, see, distortion. Neves distort. The warmth and punchiness comes from the distortion.
All right. So we're going to tell the truth here. And remember that I spent my formative years working with the guys who did all these albums. Did some of them myself. These guys, 99.999999999% of the time, operated these mic preamps in their linear range. If you distorted them, you were in trouble. You know, today we worry about aliasing and stuff, but back then, so if you're using type of Dolby noise reduction you'd see on Studers often, they're using companders. And if you distort something on the way in, you better damn sure be careful what you're doing with the high end, because when that compander gave it back to you, really bad things could happen. Really cool things could happen. Remember, Mutt Lange is famous for just doing encode only and not doing the decode on the Dolby noise reduction system. And that was our treble blaster back in the day, right? You could make that that's a Def Leppard sound. The pitchless yells of the giant gang vocals and stuff. That was the compander going. And a lot of times you'd bypass you cut the circuit up, so you're bypassing the lowest band on that compander. But just like with aliasing today, if you're not careful about your high end and how it's going to react with the rest of the system, you really had to be careful about that distortion. So most of the time you weren't distorting the mic preamps. And if you were probably low pass filtering them. Because, okay, so if it's going into the compander, when it re-expands the signal on the way back, that does some crazy stuff with the high end if it's distorted. It might jump between the bands, and they might be compressed and uncompressed at different levels and times, which did some crazy stuff. But even if you didn't use noise reduction, distorting onto tape, it was its own limiter, but it didn't treat that in a linear fashion either. Tape past its bias is nonlinear as well. I mean, it's nonlinear across the board, but it really becomes, the nonlinearities get really crazy up top when you get past what their operating level is meant to be. I'd like to say headroom, but it's not quite true, because that's also not a linear curve in between the nominal level and headroom level. Anyway, blah 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 blah. You tended not to distort mic preamps. You were operating mic preamps in their linear range. So this whole thing that, it needs to be distorted before it sounds right, it's just not true. They weren't using it that way for the most part. Sometimes, but not usually. They say they were. They say they were distorting them. You'll see that a lot. But when you actually go and check it out, that's not true.
Vintage British discrete analog distortion. Maybe it does. Preamps can distort. Anything can distort. Like, here's a delay pedal in bypass.
Yeah, so let's remember, Jim Lill did an amazing video on distortion, the nature of distortion itself, and that's probably something you really, really, really should watch, because you might not think it's related to microphone preamp distortion, but it's the same phenomenon. What's your take on modern interfaces with front-end effects, like compressions or other? My take on modern interfaces with analog gear up front, if you want to use it, go for it. I always like to say, like hand grenades are a powerful thing. You don't necessarily want to give them to a guy that doesn't know how to not point guns at people first. It's a powerful and dangerous thing, but if you know what you're doing and that's the sound you want, there's lots of different philosophies out there. I like to document and then mangle the crap out of it later on when I'm mixing, usually. But I know engineers who, or producers who can talk to the engineers, and they hear the finished product in their head. They're not on an exploration. See, I kind of treat albums as a journey, as an exploration. But some of these guys know what it is that they want it to sound like exactly at the end, and they know how to get it there. And as dangerous it is, I see people who gate, who use noise gates on drums on the way in, and I think it's crazy, because if you get it wrong, you're kind of screwed. There's no undoing that. Same with compressors. But at the same time, I've seen guys who will hammer things on the way in, and they know exactly how they want to lay it out, and it works perfect for them. And I think that's if that's the way you want to behave, that's it's certainly viable. Now, Universal Audio is funny, because so many of the religious nut jobs that were circling the Universal Audio stuff, man, the crap they would claim, and the way they would stick to it, the apologetics was just nuts. And so one of my favorite I told you so's in my whole pro audio career was when we finally got a chance to test native CPU use versus UAD card or UAD powered DSP. And it turned out that, for the most part, as I said, way back in the day, even when the UAD1 card came out, the UAD1 card was a dongle, and your CPU was going to take at least as much of a hit by using that card, if not more, than if you had run those plugins natively. They just didn't let you run them natively. You had to run the dongle. And then as soon as we actually have plugins that run both on the UAD cards and on native, we see that you can run a hell of a lot more of them on your native CPU than you could run on your UAD DSP card. But that doesn't say anything about the quality of their plugins and stuff. I think, to me, they make a perfectly good representation of the gear they're modeling. And if that's how you want to run it, go for it, man. I have a UAD subscription. I don't use them anymore. Actually, not subscription. I did a buy when there was a bunch of them for cheap. And for a little while there, I think on this, not only a couple of years ago, I was using them on everything. And nowadays, I don't really use them on anything anymore, but I like to know they're there. Yeah, it's like, man, if I really want to get this video flagged, I'm just gonna say, UAD is one thing. Dante is a whole nother level of gaslighting when it comes to dongles. All you Dante haters, leave your hate in the comments, and if you want to, email, I would say email Stephen Slate audio at stephenslate.com. Yeah, that's it. Email him, Dante guys. All right. Let's see what we got here. Is there a special vintage distortion?
Its job isn't to distort, and nobody ever hears it distort because nobody ever puts it in a situation where it would distort. But if you're insane and you run a power amp into it...
Holy crap.
So really, when we hear distortion, it could be the Neve, or it could be the mic going into the Neve, or it could be the next piece of gear the Neve goes into. And I want to figure that out. Let's start with the mic. There are a lot of microphones out there, and I did a big 30-minute long video all about them that's a lot like this video, and you should go watch it if you want to know why. But because of all the work I did there, I'm not worried about the mic itself distorting. But if I'm thinking about preamps, it would be good to know the biggest signals mics are actually giving to the preamp when they're recording music.
Man, this is something that when the boutique mic preamp craze was going on, I always told the manufacturers, so that, remember, pretty much everybody sent us back then, not me today here in Hawaii, but back when I was in the bigger studios, they would send us these mic preamps because they wanted, a picture of us using these mic preamps would sell their mic preamps for them. They could put it in Mix Magazine or whatever. And I'd always tell them, this is digital stuff now. So just having a gain knob is not going to do it. If you really want people to distort your mic preamps and you want to hear that distortion, you're going to have an attenuator on this. And not everybody did. So a lot of times you had to run this through another device to turn them down in order to turn the mic preamp gain up enough to distort the mic preamp without overloading the analog to digital converter. Because I never say never, but one form of distortion that people almost always do not want to have is digital clipping. Just straight clipping the analog to digital converter. And yeah, it's kind of nuts. Like, very few of these things actually had attenuators on them, at least at the beginning. Now, I think most of them do now. One of the first ones to really do it was Art. The ART, the El Cheapo ones. They would make it so you could make guitar preamps out of these things. They had these tube 12AX7 mic Starflate tube again. Like, man. So I keep going off in so many directions. You probably should watch Jim Lill's earlier video about distortion, and you'll see that tube amps, a lot of times it was the transistor doing the distortion, not the tubes. But anyway.
Which would mean putting a mic in front of a kick drum, a snare drum, a rack tom, a floor tom, a hi-hat, overheads, an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar amp and cab, and a vocal. So I did all of that. And this is my spreadsheet. So when I'm reaming on all these instruments, the highest thing that's going to hit the preamp from any of them is 0.97 volts peak. Let's remember that for later. Now let's think about what the Neve goes into. The Neve is never the last thing in the chain. It has to go into something that records the audio. I'm just a performer, I don't know anything about history, but originally Neves were designed to send audio to a tape machine, and tape machines had to be set up so zero on their meters all meant the same thing, and the better the tape machine, the more headroom it had above that without distorting. So a good tape machine might have had 14.
Not necessarily just the tape machine, the tape formula itself. Remember, at the very end of tape days, we had, was it $4.99? Ampex had that $4.99, I think. Quantigy had GP9, was it? And you had a pretty insane amount before the thing would distort. And it was kind of the opposite. You had more linear tape at the end, even though it's supposed to be a tape warmth that's going to make everything better. But people were screaming for $4.99.
15 dB of headroom. When digital recorders came around, they were replacing tape machines, and their specs had to be at least as good as tape machines. So they were set up at the factory so their maximum level before distorting was plus 4 dBu with 18 dB of headroom.
All right, so here's, this is kind of important. This this isn't always true, but if you ever wondered why is it that we call minus 18 dBFS 0 VU, this is why. You were trying to give the absolute, I mean, like, let's be real here, that the tape machine, it doesn't have 18 decibels of linear headroom, but you could reasonably have your nominal level at 0 on 456, let's say, and have some pretty high peaks, because again, tape was not accurate. That if that peak was fast enough, it wasn't gonna make any difference. And so it's not always true, but in general, we call today minus 18 decibel full scale 0 VU or plus 4 dBU. So piece of history anyway. But you know, it's important to know if you're going to try and calibrate all your stuff.
If you do the math, that means about 13 volts peak. So the biggest thing that can come out of the preamp and hit the converters without the converters distorting is 13 volts peak. Cool.
So I don't think there's an attenuator on this mic preamp, so you're not actually going to be able to distort this thing without distorting the AD converter. Unless you clip it on the front end, but I don't think that's going to happen. But you could attenuate it, I think. I mean, some analog to digital converters have attenuators, but are you listening to the attenuator or are you listening to the mic preamp's distortion?
In order for us to hear the Neve distorting, this much coming in from the mic has to be enough, but also the Neve has to be sending less than this out. Let's figure out if that's what's happening. I'm just a performer. I don't have a signal generator and an oscilloscope, so I borrowed them. This thing generates a signal, and this thing shows that signal. So if I make the signal go all the way through the Neve, then I can show what comes out of the Neve, like this. The Neve on its lowest gain setting will distort when it's receiving 4.75 volts from a microphone. And when the Neve finally reaches distortion, it's putting out 25.82 volts peak. Let's take a minute and appreciate how mind-blowing this is. First,
yeah, that's like 5 times what he's able to put out from his microphone with the snare drum, and twice what the analog to digital converter can handle.
None of the mics are ever putting out a signal big enough to make the Neve distort, not even close. You'd have to crank the gain knob up to get it there. But even if you did, then the output level of the Neve would be smashing the converters.
Yeah, so again, this is why, before any of this, I said, you know, I told them they needed to have attenuators on their mic preamps if we wanted to hear that distortion. This is why. So I'm glad that the math bears me out here.
Long before you got any of the vintage British warm, discrete, warm Neve distortion, you'd already be getting tons of cold, cacophonous, bees in a tinfoil box digital distortion. And yes,
25 is bigger than 13.
I double and triple checked this using multiple methods, including making 80 different audio files to run through the Neve and manually recording voltages for each of them. In order to hear Neve distortion, you'd have to crank the input gain past normal and then turn down the fader on the console to at least negative 5.3 dB, which isn't what happens. Every engineer I know tracks with the faders at unity or 0, and they set the preamp gain so the converters don't clip. And mathematically, objectively, every single time in the past, present, or future that an engineer has ever tracked through a Neve with no converters clipping and faders at unity, it is not possible for there to ever be or have ever been Neve distortion.
Wait. Just take a look here. Let's see if we can get a picture. Vintage King. The 1081, 1073. Okay. All right. See this on the end here? See if we can get a better view. I'm betting that this knob right here. So this is Brent Averill. He racks up vintage gear. You've probably seen this before. This is the mic preamp knob. It bought whatever gain knob. I'm thinking that this is the output attenuator. Might not be an attenuator, might actually be active, but probably it's just a passive attenuator. And so in order to get that distortion, you could actually turn this down. So it's not that you couldn't do this, but in general, Jim's right here, but I'm just being super crazy technical, so people don't come after me and or him maybe. Yeah, no one ever drives Neve preamps, or that everyone leaves faders at zero. That's not true at all. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of going through right here. With the Brent Averils, with a lot of these mic preamps at the end, you could actually crank them and turn down the attenuator and stuff. But in general, especially with the albums that everybody's talking about that were recorded on these mic preamps and stuff, you almost always operated these mic preamps in their linear range. I mean, it's kind of one of the famous counter examples is that whatever that song at the end of Warriors in the City, where they're putting the guitar into distorting console mic preamps. It's like a transistor distortion. Again, one of these albums that everybody says is so cool, but that was a transistor distortion that was on the guitar. But that was a time when you're driving the mic preamps. But in general, you operated them in their linear range, and I went through why earlier, but there's times when you didn't. So yeah, so thank you, Ed's 4754, because you are keeping this honest.
That means distortion cannot be an ingredient of the Neve sound.
Yeah, this is actually technically wrong. It's practically true, but there is a way to distort to drive these mic preamps.
Oh, okay, so I have to crank the gain and turn down the output so
Right.
I can get the
There you
Neve
go.
sound.
There you go.
What? No, how is it possible that you got that from what I was saying? Because
that's exactly the claim, though. So there's nothing wrong. This is a good one to get through. I'm glad. Look, see, this is how smart my channel is. Ed's 4754 called this out before he even got to this on the video. See? Give you guys selves a hand.
that's how you get the Neve distortion. I want the special distortion. So I just found out that in all normal cases, Neve distortion isn't actually happening. But while I've been working on the video, whenever I've talked with friends about the idea that Neve distortion can't happen unless you crank the gain and lower the fader, the person I'm talking to, every time, has said, "Oh, so I need to crank the gain and lower the fader." This is extremely frustrating because no, in the entire history of recorded music, this behavior is an anomaly that amounts to functionally 0% of cases, and by saying
I would say that that's true. It functionally zero, like I said earlier, 99.99999. But we did come up with one counterexample that Brian Adams, Joe Walsh. I don't know who the guy was that played that song. Okay, now that's gonna bug me. Sorry, let me. That was Joe Walsh. Okay, so that's Joe Walsh. Sorry. Okay, here we go.
saying, "Oh, so I need to crank the gain and lower the fader," you're prioritizing the special distortion of a piece of gear over the reality that you've likely never heard the special distortion of that piece of gear in any music you've ever enjoyed.
Yep.
You have been freed from needing that special distortion as an ingredient in making good music. Why do people still think they want that special distortion when they don't even know what it sounds like?
Because that is where it's a fallacy called God of the gaps. Every time you explain away some set of nonsense circumstances, somebody will say, "Oh no, but the special magic tooth fairy is hiding here in this one spot." I don't know if you ever watched. So this isn't the first time this has been done. But the last time, the biggest time this was probably done, nobody provided any actual frequency response measurements or distortion or noise measurements. It was pull this up here. It was, now if you go to Safe Space, you'll see this was discussed and it's so this December 2012. There was an older one too. There's an older one than this. People ended up picking the Mackie and the Art as like the best mic preamps. So this was just listening tests. But this was a big one. And so everybody was saying, "Oh, well, the actual difference in them is the distortion. You hear the subtle distortion in the and then that they could never hear it because they couldn't even pick which one was which. But if you really want to hear about the distortion claims and stuff, probably a good place is to go back, not necessarily to the actual articles from Sound on Sound on the Mike Preamp shootout, but the safe space discussion of it, because that really went off the rails, man. Let me see if so here's one of them. Here's over at Safe Space. Pick a preamp. So they're all discussing, and you watch the apologetics. All the people who bought these things, they talk about sunk cost fallacy or whatever. And man, they defend their purchases to death. And the God of the gaps, it's got to be hiding in there somewhere. I guarantee it. I promise, it's hiding in there. And man, there is forum after forum of just going through that stuff. It's fascinating, but it's like any other thing. Like people who think that Elvis is still alive and they know they've seen Elvis, like the way they go to defend this stuff, if psychology wasn't in so much trouble right now, it would make for some good papers.
Wait, what does that special distortion actually sound like? This video isn't called Where Does the Tone Come From in Distortion, but now it is. This is Where Does the Tone Come From in Distortion. I'm planning a dedicated video.
Yeah, so he did such a good video on distortion. This is required watching what he did with that, I think. This is the same as people who claim high sample rate audio is better when they do not have a physical ability to hear a difference, never mind the mental training to do so. There's been a couple, Dan Lavery of all people, somebody who you'd think would be pumping high sample rate devices because you could make a lot more money with them. But several people since then have said that a lot of times the higher sample rate is going to result in lower fidelity, not better. But to be fair, I want to say that put this, you do have a better chance of getting a better anti-aliasing filter if everything else is equal at a higher sample rate. You just have longer to do that slope. And then there is the potential halving, cutting in half of latency when you double the sample rate. But that, like I said, potential, because that doesn't necessarily or actually ever usually happen in the real world. Anyway.
All about distortion, but for now, I'm only worried about answering two questions. One, what does the special vintage analog Neve distortion actually sound like?
I love that it's a picture of the beefiest bird. If you've never encountered a Canadian goose or a Canada goose, you get in trouble if you call them Canadian. I'll call them Canadian. These birds, even though anybody, really, you could just one-shot them, just smack, and they're dead. Doesn't matter. These guys attack you like they're the King Kong, and you don't stand a chance, man. Like, these birds are insane. I love them. They're hilarious, and when they're your friend, it's awesome. But when they're your enemy, man, they will make your life miserable. These birds are hilarious.
And two, is it actually special? Distortion happens when the music is too loud for the gear to handle, or put a little more accurately, when the amount of voltage is higher than the gear can handle. Nobody uses the phrase distortion ceiling, but in the test I've done, that seems to be what's happening. Each piece of gear has a ceiling, where it can't put out any more voltage and the wave gets clipped. The presumption is that each different type of distortion behaves differently around and above this ceiling, and that's what makes them special. And maybe they do. But I don't think I've ever heard a test where anybody has tried to match the frequency response so that isn't causing the difference, and match the amount of...
Sorry, but I did that test. It's on my website. Did it years ago. But that's just me. And nobody reads my stuff anyway, so it's okay.
Distortion so that isn't causing the difference, and then just compare two different methods of achieving distortion and listen to how big that difference is. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I do remember one time that happened. But anyway, if we take the Neve and feed it signals like drums and vocals and guitars, but...
You guys noticing the asymmetric distortion? Take a look again.
For one time that happened. But anyway, if we take the Neve and feed...
See that? I paused it at just the right time. See how the positive excursion is still... Looks like it's pretty much untouched. And look at the negative excursion. That's already clipping asymmetrically.
Signals like drums and vocals and guitars, but keep track of how far above the distortion ceiling we're going. What does that sound like?
Okay, hopefully you can hear from this why usually in these cases you're doing a pretty severe low pass filter on the distortion. To me, not it depends what I want, but I mean, if I wanted a crystal clear, this is horrible. But if I want something to get kind of thicker, this is actually pretty cool, this mic preamp distortion. But again, watch those high frequencies, because what's it turning into? It's the same thing. It's bees in a can, right? It's really at that 12 dB over that high end that kind of was making trouble lower down in the distortion curve is now getting saturated itself. So it's not, I don't think it's making as much trouble. It's actually making a pretty cool sound. And that's, I don't dare play a Joe Walsh song, because you guys know what'll happen to me. I'll turn into Rick Beato. But that's the sound. That's actually kind of cool. I'd still, of course, you'd still be low passing it, especially if you're going into a digital device like that. Amount of aliasing would annihilate you.
I just need you in a car that runs. I just need you in a car that runs. I just need you in a car that runs. I just need you in a car that runs. I just need you in a car that runs.
Watch the snare. All right, so the ring of the snare, yeah, it turns into garbage. But if you notice that little crack of the snare, so if we want to do the outlier case of when something is almost always used this way, think of the API mic preamp. Not that it's going to do it in a much different way, but for some reason that has been the mic preamp where people will build themselves a little attenuator box after it and use it for snares, and they will crank the crap out of snares and distort the snares into square waves with those API mic preamps, and then use the attenuator to turn them down low enough to get in to the tape or the digital recorder or whatever. That is one case where I remember people actually distorting mic preamps, and I'm trying to think of another one, but that's a biggie. That kind of a famous sound, that snare, the distorted snare. But usually they'd have another mic preamp recording that as well. You might have the two mics, 451 and the 57 taped together over there, and that is it 451? Yeah, 451. Okay, sorry. Getting old, man. Forgetting all this stuff.
Okay, that's real. That's vintage analog British discrete Neve distortion. If you purposefully or negligently set up your gear so that this happens, that's what it sounds like. But is it special? I could rent some preamps and do a big shootout, but that wouldn't actually answer my question. I want to test the absolute limits, and I'm just a performer. I have no way of knowing if these circuits or these plugins do something special that might secretly make them kind of like the Neve. I want something that is unquestionably dumb and not special. So I wrote the distortion plugin. I wasn't exaggerating.
No
I don't know how to
way.
code, but I know the crudest version of distortion would be, hey, if it gets louder than this, don't let it get any louder. Otherwise, don't touch it. This would be hard distortion, the hardest of distortion, or digital clipping, and it's exactly what converters do when they clip, which, remember, is universally regarded as very bad distortion. But if I send the same...
Yeah, Maddie, of course we can distort with the plugin, and that's... But I mean, even Universal Audio, that's they're selling that their Neve preamp distorts the way a real Neve preamp would. And so, yeah, I mean, but We have things like Saturn, like we have these multi-band distortion plugins where you can draw your own distortion. Scott Stillwell made long ago. What did he call that thing? Scott Stillwell. What was the name of that one? Scott made. Oh, he's making new stuff, man. Hey, we got to go. Yeah, Bad Bus Mojo. That's what you could do some pretty serious types of distortion with this guy. You had your asymmetry and everything. You could control what you wanted to do with it. We can do some pretty incredible stuff with distortion ourselves now on digitally on in plugins and whatever.
Audio through it and match how far over the distortion ceiling they are, what does that actually sound like? I just need you and a car that runs. I just need you and a car that runs. I just need you and a car that runs. I just need you and a car that runs. To recap this whole distortion section of the video, typical mic choices for different instruments don't produce enough voltage to distort the Neve when recording music. And if they did, the output voltage of the Neve would be so high it would clip the converters first. So, Neve distortion has never been an ingredient in professional music, and you don't need to worry about it. Unless...
Never say never, but it's close enough to... It's like when they say 0.9 with a bar over it is effectively 1.
Unless you turn down the output fader so you could get Neve distortion without converter distortion, and even if you did, it wouldn't sound any different from the converter distortion you could have gotten for free but purposefully avoided. But Jim, says the internet, analog gear is always distorting. Okay, why do you think that? Look at the total harmonic distortion percentage in the manual. Okay, so total harmonic distortion, or THD percent, is a real thing. It's a measure of distortion, and some gear might be different. Some might have 0.1%, some might have 1%, but I don't know what that means. It'd be good to have context for what that actually...
Yeah, let's put this in context right now. One of the fundamental tenets of the religion of pro audio is that you need Class A mic preamps. You need Class A discrete mic preamps, but never mind the discrete part. Let's just go with the Class A part right now. Oh my God! Don't turn me into one of those internet clapping ladies. You needed Class A mic preamps. If you don't know, it amplifies the full signal range rather than some does the top part of one amplifier does the top, one amplifier does the bottom. That's be Class B. Most things are Class A, B, where they're both amplifier sections. They're not necessarily separate amplifiers, but both halves are operating for a little bit more than half the duty cycle. That's a Class AB. So the religion claims that when you put those two amplifiers together in Class B or even Class AB, there's some kind of issue where they cross over. They call it crossover distortion. And that doesn't mean frequency. That means where the positive excursion changes to the negative excursion. And crossover distortion is something so bad that we need to do super inefficient Class A designs and spend a lot of money in order to keep that crossover distortion from happening. But if you look at a Class AB amplifier, this is probably what you're going to see. Total harmonic distortion is going to be some fraction of a percent. And at the chances of actually hearing that crossover distortion, even if you compress the crap out of the signal, it's still so far down there, you're probably never going to hear it. I don't know that personally I've ever heard crossover distortion, except for in like Scott Stillwell's Bad Bus Mojo, where you're actually amplifying the crossover distortion itself.
Sounds like. So I looked at the distortion page of my Neve sweep tests. Since it sent out a perfect sine wave, anything
80 decibels down. Think about how hard you have to compress that before you hear that. in a modern, let's be generous and call it a minus 14 LUFS mix, because we know it's not going to be, there's going to be like minus 6. So think about how you're going to hear that minus 80.
Gets back that deviates at all from a perfect sine wave is distortion, specifically when it's harmonics, or multiples of the frequency being sent at any given moment. And I'm going to be super generous here. As the gain knob is turned up, the signal-to-noise ratio gets a little worse and the distortion rises. And it looks like it's highest here. So just to pick out a spot, with the gain knob at plus 40, the highest the distortion gets is negative 60.5 dB, when the clean signal is at negative 15.4 dB. That means the distortion is 45 dB quieter. So, in normal use, the ambient distortion level is at least 45 dB quieter than the undistorted signal. Can I hear that? Can you hear that? Can anyone hear that? I tried a few different ways of figuring this out, and my favorite, easiest, fastest, and most unbiased way is to take the Klippel listening test. It's a website, and it gives you the chance to listen to either a song or a couple of sine waves clean and then with distortion. After that, you have to choose whether you think you're hearing the original undistorted version or the version with some amount of distortion. It starts very easy, and then as the test goes on and you get some answers right, the amount of distortion gets less and less, until eventually you're just guessing, and then it gives you the results. So I did that in my acoustically treated studio with really nice speakers that I tuned specifically for the room, and these are my results. Wait, Jim, that's not fair. Not everybody has that. Okay, so I also did the test in my kitchen on my laptop with a pair of cheap earbuds, and these are my results. Wait, Jim, that's not what I'm doing when I'm commenting on your videos. Okay, so I also did the test in my bathroom sitting on my toilet and listening through the phone speaker, just like you're probably doing right now. And these are my results. In the studio, my threshold for audibility of distortion on a pair of sine waves is negative 71 dB. That's actually insanely good. It means the speaker system is clear and my ears are capable. The sine wave test is sort of a best case scenario for being able to hear distortion. It makes it as easy as possible to hear a difference. In the kitchen on the earbuds, it was negative 42 dB, and in the bathroom on the phone speaker, it was negative 51 dB. So those situations are less ideal for critical listening, but the real question is, how loud does distortion have to be to hear it in music? And here are my results for that. I'm just a performer. I don't know anything about psychoacoustic.
So think about how crazy cranked you'd have to be to get there.
But every musical instrument has some amount of overtones and harmonics.
So there's a lot of stuff going on here. So he's going to talk about harmonics. There's all sorts of masking going on. There's precedence effect. There's actually a lot of psychological effects that are changing this threshold of audibility as well.
Harmonic distortion is overtones. So very low levels of distortion are susceptible to not being perceived in music due to auditory masking, which is when low volume sounds at a given frequency don't even make it to the brain because that area of the cochlea is already being vibrated by something else that's louder. That's probably why, when it came to music, in any of the three listening environments, it got really, really hard to hear the difference between the totally clean example and the distorted example when the distortion was about 15 dB lower than the clean signal, and then literally impossible beyond about 21 dB. Oh no, oh no, oh no! Oh, that's embarrassing. This is gonna suck. I think that I got way lucky on that. But Jim, maybe that's just your shitty ears, not everyone's. Before I even had a chance to wonder if my ears were bad.
Yeah, you know that's the one. What do you call that argument? It's another fallacy where argument cantifordium. Like they always try and say, oh, if you don't hear the difference just because you don't have the money for these mic preamps, but like. Not that I have money, but I can definitely get my hands on all these mic preamps. That's how I did these tests, and back in the day, I had studios full of all this stuff, and I still didn't have any money. So it ain't about being able to afford it or not. I actually did test this stuff, or blame the victim. If you still don't hear it, even though you did everything right, well, it's your ears are crappy, but their ears are no better. So put them on an ABX test.
When I finished the Klippel test, it showed me where the thousands of previous participants ran out of hearing. And minus a few cheaters over here, it's a pretty normal-looking bell curve. So it's unrealistic to think that anyone can hear distortion levels in music that are beyond 30 dB below the fundamental. What were the Neve numbers again? Oh, yeah, negative 45 dB. So, while analog gear, or more likely all gear, has a non-zero amount of distortion happening all the time, it is so small that there is literally zero chance that you...
You know what he needs to do, and I hope he does this? Show the distortion from that cheapo Scarlett preamp. I bet you it's lower. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot lower.
or I are
And that's with the crossover distortion.
ever perceiving it. So it cannot be part of the Neve sound. And if you're still skeptical, then cool, take the test for yourself. It's super easy. You can even do it on the toilet. But Jim, you're clearly not a real engineer because you haven't mentioned slew rate. Every amplifier has a
Remember I was saying to put that on the bingo card, right? Transient response, slew rate.
slew rate. All right, thanks for letting me know. I'll look that up. Okay, preamps are amplifiers. They amplify everything that goes through them, but they can't do it instantaneously. It takes them some amount of time. That amount of time is called the slew rate, and some preamps have a faster slew rate than others. And the worry would be that the preamp isn't going to be able to catch up to the big sudden sounds that it needs to amplify, and it would cut off or shape the beginning of those big sudden sounds. Or wait, maybe the worry is that the shaping is good, and the slowness of vintage preamps makes them actually better than boring, affordable.
It's an argument they can make, right? Again, what do you call good? Is perfect good? If so, then this cheap mic preamp is going to pretty much win most of the time, any modern mic preamp. If changing something is good, then maybe an attenuated response. I mean, think about it. We have attack times on live gates because if they open immediately, it's still not immediately. They're gonna click in because they're riding half of a waveform. Whereas if you make the attack ramp up, maybe it's that click will go away. That could be better than perfect.
Ones that are built in.
Well, I mean, technically perfect would be it looks ahead in time and opens in time, but we don't have time travel yet, so we have to trade latency for that, which is not necessarily cool. So anyway, just being a pedantic here.
Into whatever gear you already have. But while this is the image that flowery internet language conjures in my brain, is that actually what's happening? Slew rate is voltage rise over time. So to know how it affects preamps, it seems like it'd be extremely important to know how many volts are we talking about, and how much time are we talking about? Well, I think I already know the volts part from earlier. Just before hard distorting, Neves can handle 5 volts peak on the input and 25 volts peak on the output. So that means when it comes to signal, 50 volts peak to peak is the biggest swing any part of the preamp will ever have to make. Now, how much time does it need? Well, these fades in Pro Tools that I made as an example of how big loud drum hits might be affected are 20 milliseconds. So that would for sure be something. But the problems could start way before that, because if I zoom in on a wave, it's going from its lowest point to its highest point really, really fast, like 5 milliseconds for 100 hertz. So if the slew rate is getting in the way of that, it's going to be an issue. In fact, as the frequency gets higher and higher, the amount of time between the lowest and highest points of a wave gets shorter and shorter, and the slew rate would have to be faster and faster to accurately reproduce it. So let's shoot for the moon. What's the
Again, if you still want to keep Santa Claus belief, tune out for the next little bit, but spoiler alert, your cheap mic preamp can record 10 kilohertz sine waves.
highest frequency I care about? 20 kilohertz, the highest humans can hear. What amount of time does it take a 20 kilohertz wave to go from its lowest to its highest point? 25 microseconds. Holy crap, that's fast. Okay, cool. So for the slew rate to ever affect what we hear, a preamp would have to have a slew rate of less than 50 volts per 25 microseconds, or 2 volts per microsecond. How does that compare to the actual slew rate of different preamps? Well, maybe it's because search engines suck now, or maybe it's because nobody has actually done this before, but when I searched for slew rates of microphone preamps, about half of it was stuff I wasn't looking for, and half of it was people talking without...
Yep. No numbers, just babbling. Just babble. So we ask, where's your holy dude? You know.
The microphone preamps, about half of it was stuff I wasn't looking for, and half of it was people talking without providing actual numbers or measurements, which also isn't what I was looking for. And buried deep in the results, I found one guy that measured a Neve, an API, and a Millennia preamp. And his results were 8 volts per microsecond for the Neve, 10.2 volts per microsecond for the API, and 24 volts per microsecond for the Millennia. So even the slowest of these was 4 times faster than necessary to reproduce all audible frequencies in all conditions. But maybe that one guy's wrong, so I'll be the guy. I'll do it myself. Hey, remember that signal generator and oscilloscope? Well, those can also show how fast the slew rate is. I'm setting this graph so each box is 2 volts tall and 1 microsecond wide. So if the slew rate of the Neve is less than 2 volts per microsecond, aka slow enough to ever affect the sound of the audio in any situation, then the line would be
So if the Neve can't make it, they're going to call that a feature, not a bug.
shallow.
But again, I'm saying, like, what do you call good? I say perfect is good.
Below 45 degrees, like this. But if the Neve is capable of reproducing a line that's 45 degrees or steeper, then the slew rate is faster than 2 volts per microsecond, and therefore not a problem. So what happens when I actually do that? Oh, it's pretty steep. Let's do counting. It goes to the right 1, 2 boxes, and it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes. So the Neve is capable of at least 8 volts per microsecond. And amongst people who talk about this stuff, the Neve is talked about as a slow preamp. If the Neve is slow, and it's 4 times overqualified, then everything else that's fast would also be overqualified. And according to math and anatomy, in these cases, slew rate never is, never would be, and never has been audible.
Oh, wait, let's look at
But there's another way to look
Starlight.
at it with less math. We can just see if the bad thing we're worried about actually happens. If the slew rate is slow enough to be bad at amplifying high frequencies at high voltages, then I can just send sweeps of different voltages through the Neve and see if the results are ever different. So I did. And there's literally 0 difference in high-end frequency response, even if the Neve is working with the highest frequencies humans can hear at maximum voltage. Okay, turns out the cartoonish idea of the slew rate of a Neve shaping the front end of drum hits like a crossfade would only be possible if the slew rate was literally 10 times, 100 times, 3,000 times slower than it is. Jim, you're clearly not a real engineer. You haven't mentioned impedance. The preamp uniquely interacts
that
with
was
the
on my
mics
bingo
because of
card too, right?
impedance. All right, I'll look that up. Okay, impedance is an electrical term. It's like
Yes.
resistance, but for when resistance is different for different frequencies. Mics have an output impedance and preamps have an input impedance. So this could make the same mic sound different if it's going into a different preamp. Okay, does it? I got out my mic testing rig and set up each of my mics, then did a sweep test with them plugged into the Neve and a sweep test with them plugged into the garbage. And these were the results. Okay, cool. This is not nothing. It may even almost be something, but I've got to check how big these differences actually are. And the biggest difference in any of these is negative 0.9 dB at 200 hertz. So what does that sound like? I just need you in a car to ride. I just need you in a car to ride. You in a car to, you in a car to. I just need you in a car to ride. And everything else I got was less different than that. There might be a mic out there with a weird output impedance and a preamp out there with a weird input impedance that makes this a bigger deal, but at least with all of these, impedance isn't an ingredient in the Neve sound. But Neves have inductors. The sound of the Neve is in its analog inductive
Transformer.
EQ. You haven't.
That, I mean, you know, people just stick transformers and things to get that sound, but I don't think they know what that sound sounds like, but everybody claims they do.
Talked about the EQ. Whoa, hey, that's moving the goalposts a bit. I thought we were talking about preamps. This video isn't called Where Does the Tone Come From in an EQ, but guess what? Now it is. This is where the tone comes from in an EQ. Okay, so the point of an EQ is to change the sound and make it bright.
Spoiler alert again, sorry. Ethan Weiner did this EQ test, and except for the non-linear components of special EQs, which didn't amount to much, by the way. We got to be clear about that. There's nothing magic that we don't understand about EQs.
Brighter, darker, fatter, thinner, or some other adjective, and it does this by changing the frequency response of the piece of gear. In other words, if you want something to be brighter, the gear has to do something that makes it better at passing through the treble. If you want something to be darker, the gear has to do something that makes it worse at passing through the treble. I'm just a performer. I don't know anything about circuits, but
1 second, let me just get this real quick. Yeah, sorry, I'm taking a phone call right now. 1 second. All right, sorry. We're gonna do actually a kind of cool thing that my software company is gonna do a feeding the people in Waimanalo, and I'm trying to get an artist to play at the same time, and so I guess we need a permit. We'll see.
The inductors in a Neve are part of an inductive circuit that is one way of accomplishing this, and engineers love how musical analog Neve EQs are. And I don't know what that means, but I know that engineers are not so complimentary of the stock Pro Tools EQ plugin, which contains no inductors or any other analog parts. So I did some tests of my own, and the stock Pro
Spoiler alert. All right.
Tools EQ makes clean, cold, calculated frequency response curves like this. And the Neve makes warm, creative, musical analog frequency response curves like this. Oh, they're
I warned you. I warned you, Virginia.
pretty much the same. But that isn't fair of me. I did have to dial the Pro Tools EQ to match what the Neve does, but the fact that I can even do that at all kind of blows up the thing I used to think, which was that digital EQs just can't do what analog EQs do. But what happens if I change the gain? Oh. Oh, wow. So that's the analog EQ sound.
Nope.
It isn't that the curves
Nope.
are
So that there's several names for this type of Q widening or shrinking as you change the gain, but it's easy enough to do in EQs, and we've done it in plug-in EQs for, can we say decades now? I think so. Decades.
copyable. It's just that the bandwidth of the boosts and cuts might be different as the amount of booster cut changes. Like, the Neve starts out wide and gets more narrow, whereas the Pro Tools EQ keeps the same width no matter the boost. So maybe that's what engineers are calling musical. Sure, every individual curve is matchable by digital methods, but the analog EQs automatically have this behavior, and digital doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Unless you spend $250 for this plugin, then it matches almost perfectly. Or $100 for this plugin. Or $35 for this plugin. But I'm just a performer, I don't know anything about making EQ plugins. And that brings up a really good point. I'm just a performer. I'm just a guy who plays guitar and owns a camera and spent 6 months of rent on a preamp with the goal of figuring out how much of an effect the legendary Neve console at Ocean Way Nashville Studio A might have had on the sound of my favorite music. Sure, I hunted down the exact vintage module they have, but at the end of the day, no matter how ironclad all my tests and data are, it isn't the same as actually getting to go to Ocean Way and test their board. You know I had to do it, right? This is Ocean Way Nashville Studio.
Back in the day, that was like the dream, and today I wouldn't use this stuff if you paid me. I'd just bring my computer. In fact, that's what I do every time. Like, even way back before Reaper 1 was released, the first time me and Justin met in real life, I was using their vintage Trident as a stand to hold up my laptop. So
A's 1970s Neve 8078 board with 31105 preamp and EQ modules. This is the board that my favorite music was tracked through. And it is one of the most important things in the world to me to find out what the sound of this board is, and if I can somehow have it for myself. So far, from the results of all of my tests, it seems like Neves are not warm. They're flat, from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, just like this. Neves are not punchy. They operate linear.
Again, let's point out the elephant in the room. That Scarlett was actually more accurate than the Neve was there.
Until distortion, just like this. Neves are not reaching distortion under normal use, just like this. Neves, when forced into distortion, don't sound any different from converter distortion, just like this. Neves are not always distorting in a way that anybody can hear in music, just like this. Neves slew rates are more than 4 times overqualified to perfectly reproduce all frequencies in the human hearing range, just like this. Neves input.
See, that's the thing. I don't think he showed us what the slew rate was of that Scarlett. I'd like to see it, actually.
Impedance is within a normal range, so it doesn't cause major changes in common microphones' frequency responses, just like this. So, theoretically, if I ran the same audio through Ocean Way Nashville Studio A's 1970s Neve 8078 board with 31105 preamp and EQ modules, and also the garbage built-in preamps on my cheap interface, I can't.
As long as you're taking it from the right tap, because otherwise the console preamp is going to be a lot worse. It's going to be a lot noisier. It's going to be a lot more distorted, and any frequency effects that it has are going to be a lot worse because of all the additional amplifiers you're going through. Not that it probably going to make any difference in real world, but it will show on a test that the actual console's output is going to be a lot worse than just that mic preamp output. But it depends where he's taking the tap from.
Can't think of any reason they wouldn't sound the same. So I did that.
All like I just said.
This was a huge moment for me. All of these years I thought that my favorite music sounded the way it does because of the Neve board and its preamps. And so did the people who made that music.
This would be true across the board on all those records. I first of all, I love Neves. I didn't bring any outboard mic pre's. I love the old Neve in Studio A. It's still my favorite one in Nashville.
As it turns out, preamps just make the mic signal louder. There's a bunch of different ways to do that, but if they aren't changing the frequency response, then they're just doing their job. My friends, my teachers, and my heroes have been misattributing the warm, punchy musical sound of the song.
You know, but this is willful ignorance at this point, right? This is like guitar tone wood. Like, this is way worse than guitar tone wood because this is such an easy test. But like I said at the beginning of this video, when I was in this religion, I had oscilloscopes. I had this tech room. I had the dream tech room. I had every mic preamp you could think of. Back then, there weren't as many in racks yet because we still had the real consoles that these mic preamps came out of. And when I tested them against that so horrible Mackie, actually, you could see the Mackie's curve a little bit, but it wasn't by much. And it was obvious that all these claims were just nonsense. But even though I had the results, I'm looking right at them. My brain, my indoctrinated brain, would not let me say that these mic preamps sounded the same. There was still this is still the God of the gaps. I still insisted there was something in there that we just don't know how to measure, and that's where the sound is coming from. I mean, it's like watching Amway cultists, man. Like that's how zombified we were. And these guys' job is not to understand this necessarily. Their job is to put out the records that the artist is happy with, and they may never actually test this stuff. And so one, you know, I hate to say his name at this point because he's such a kind of a hateful turd in some ways, but he said it's important to me to know whether or not my beliefs are true. And I want to have as many true beliefs and as few false beliefs as I possibly can. And if you go through life with that philosophy, then yeah, when you're presented with these test results, you're just going to say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. Yeah, a big giant mixing console looks cool, but and the Scarlett doesn't.
Songs they've recorded, giving credit to the preamps that actually should have gone to them and the decisions they made about mic choices, mic placements, drum sizes, tuning, muffling, cymbals, pickups, pickup positions, amp circuit, amp settings, cab geometry, speakers, acoustic guitar body size, string age, pan positions, reverb send levels, volume fader levels. Oh yeah, and I'm just a performer, so I can't leave out all of the actual performances. But I wasn't done. One thing I left off that list that definitely belongs on it is EQ. EQ can absolutely change the sound. If there's one way that a preamp can sound like something, it's because of the specific curves.
Jim, I want you to separate the mic preamp from the EQ. This is not, I mean, EQ is EQ. Mic preamp is mic preamp.
Produced by its EQ. So I spent 4 hours in that control room, doing tests of every possible EQ change that can be made on that board. Here are some of the things that the Neve EQ actually does. First, the mid-bells are wide at low gains and get narrower at high gains. We saw that earlier. But the low bell actually moves its center frequency higher with higher gain. So when the low bell knob says 100 Hz, it's only centered on 100 Hz when it's on maximum gain. Otherwise, the center is actually less than what's printed. Maximum gain for all bands is about 18 dB, with the shelves being a little more up around 20 dB, which makes it weird that the Universal Audio plugin emulations I tried only have the shelves go up to 12 dB, and the IK81 and Waves VEQ4 only have the bells go up to 12 dB. And the maximum gain and gain travel for a given knob is about the same for all frequencies in a band, which makes it weird that the Kit Audio Blackbird plugin is all over the place, when it's supposed to be modeling the same type of preamp from the same type of board. All of the frequency knobs snap to specific predetermined frequencies, and they're all pretty close to what's printed on the faceplate, but they aren't always exact. For example, on this channel, 390 is actually 406. Also, there are 10 frequency positions in the midbands, and positions 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 have the same bandwidth, and positions 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 have the same bandwidth, but for some reason, the evens are slightly narrower than the odds. And the real Neve has small opposite resonances that make the curve a little different from a standard digital EQ, even if the bandwidths are matched. And here's what the Neve EQ actually sounds like. I have a hunch that these curves are what matters, and if they are matched, even digitally, then it should sound the same. There's no reason I found that it wouldn't. But while all of the existing plugins I've tried are close, none of them match it exactly. So I wrote the EQ plugin.
Man, I did not expect Jim Lil to be writing plugins. Something doesn't add up with this dude.
You know what I am. You know there's nothing special here. There can't be. I don't know how to do that. It's just an EQ. It just matches these curves. But what makes it special is that someone cared enough to put in the hours to measure the real thing and then match the real thing, without any AI at any point in the entire process. AI cannot do this. I am the only one with these data points. By the way, this whole thing is brought to you by my PayPal email address. I made 100% of this video by myself because it needed to exist. And I've been able to do that because when I write my PayPal email address on something I've made to figure out why music actually sounds the way it does, enough people recognize how rare and pure this is, and they chip
awesome,
in.
Man. I want to see, okay. There needs to be a video where Jim Lil and AP Mastering are hanging out together. Nobody wants to see us old dudes like me and Ethan Weiner anymore. We're old. We're over the hill. Put these two guys together, AP Mastering and Jim Lil, man. This would be the most unreal video together.
And to keep the tests going. So, if there's anything else special about the sound of the vintage British discrete analog inductive EQ on the 31105 preamp and EQ module from a channel in the 1970s Neve 8078 board at Ocean Way, Nashville Studio A, then it shouldn't be able to sound the same as a garbage preamp and an EQ plugin written by a guitar player. So what does that actually sound like? Which did you think was which? So usually in other videos, I'll just cut to black and drop the mic and let the truth exist for people to experience. I'm not in the business of telling anyone what they hear, but I'm gonna do a little segment here called Getting Ahead of It. One, is all of this actually real? Yes, 100% of this video and every one of my videos is real. The audio you hear is what I said it was. This is not merely for clicks or entertainment. This is rigorous. 2, are you saying that all preamps sound the same? No, some preamps are broken. And some preamps are made so cheaply or poorly that their frequency response doesn't stay flat from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. I bought a little mixer for $30 on Amazon, and its treble falls off at around 15K. But every musician everywhere can get their hands on something like this, and it'll work great. But Jim, my preamp sounds different. I know it does.
Broken.
Okay, show me. In fact, to help you out, I made a course that shows you exactly how to do a bunch of the stuff I did in this video. Using tools you already have and some free computer programs, I walk you through it, and then you can test not just your preamps, but your pedals and your plugins and other gear to see what it's actually doing. And this has saved me and will.
Yeah, let me real quick just say that there's 2 pieces here. Sorry, Jim, I don't want to cut into your money, but I don't know if you're showing the same stuff, but let me just show you. There's a couple others, but I think this one's free, Room EQ Wizard. This is what I use for a lot of stuff. When you see REW, it's not necessarily rewind. It might be Room EQ Wizard. And you can go grab this. Looks like it's got Windows, Mac, and Linux. All right. Use this for a lot of your frequency, just your basic acoustic testing, your frequency response, distortion, noise. And then if you really want to go crazy, this is called Plugin Doctor, but I actually use this on hardware a lot. This does cost money, but if you're really into it, Plugin Doctor is pretty amazing at seeing compressor curves and everything else. So you really, sorry. If you really get into this craziness, those are 2 pieces of software you absolutely should have.
Save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Then if you do that, you can show me that your preamp sounds different. Or maybe it doesn't. This course is actually a big deal. It's called Find Your Gear's Hidden EQ. It's brand new and it's on jimlilmusic.com. Available instantly to you right now. Like a couple hours from right now, you could know what all your gear actually does. 4, why should I trust you when Big Famous Guy says something different? I've gotten texts from friends that are different versions of this question, where they watch an interview or even in the room with a big producer guy, and he says, Neves are warm, or whatever. So why trust me instead of Big Famous Guy? Because they never did this. Do you know what it takes?
They all claim it, but have they ever actually tested it? And of course, that is your appeal to authority fallacy, brought to you by logicallyfallacious.com.
To make a useful comparison, it has to be identical playing or it's useless. From an identical microphone or it's useless. In the identical spot or it's useless. Split out to the 2 preamps you want to compare, then the level has to be exactly matched or it's useless. And very short sections of the playing have to be edited back to back with no gap or it's useless. And maybe most importantly, the audio file of the comparison has to exist so that you or anyone else can actually listen to it right now and revisit it later at any time to double check it. These are the minimum requirements to begin forming an opinion. If the story was, yeah, on take 3, the guitar was a little bright, so he patched it out of an API and into a Neve. And on take 6, it sounded better. That doesn't do any of that. Big Famous.
One variable at a time, man. Seriously.
Famous guys made huge, great, awesome things. And those things were huge, great, and awesome for a lot of reasons. And the big famous guys that I've talked to have never said that during their limited, expensive time in big studios cutting major label music, that the appropriate thing to do was to question whether the giant, awesome console actually sounds different from a Focusrite Scarlett. They're already in the room with the big Neve. They just use the big Neve, and they do whatever it takes to make the richest person in the building invite them back. So nobody knew. And if you wanted to know, you'd have to do everything I did in this video. And nobody ever did that because it takes a long time.
Let's be fair. I did these tests a long time ago. My results are up on the web. They're not as comprehensive and they're not as cool of a video, but we definitely did these tests. And yeah, Jim, I got to tell you, well, you already know. You took a lot of crap for your Tonewood videos and your distortion videos, so you know what's coming. But man, when religious nuts think that they're being insulted about their mic preamps, they are going to light your comments up. Let's
and it's hard, and you risk a piece of your religion and identity being chipped away. And why?
Ooh, he said religion. Wow. Hey, that took some balls. Hold on.
wanted to know, you'd have to do everything I did in this video. And nobody ever did that because it takes a long time and it's hard and you risk a piece of your religion and identity being chipped away.
Yes.
And why do that when you
Yes.
have a bunch of other stuff in life demanding your attention? Well, I did it. And turns out when you actually do it, this is what it actually sounds like. Now we know. I gotta say, it's weird finding out that nobody is listening. They're just repeating stuff they've heard. So that inspired a new project I'm doing for anyone that likes this kind of honesty and curiosity and wants to hang out with me without waiting a year between my giant projects.
I'm never going to get any credit
for
for
I
it,
catch up
but
on
I did
important
it.
bands and artists that I should really know about by actually listening, and you can do that along with me. Too much stuff out there comes from people who read the Wikipedia page and then repeat it and pretend they're an expert without ever showing you what it actually sounds like. So I'm not doing that. Instead, I'm telling you I might not know anything about this band. Let's forget everything we've been told and just listen to the songs and see what's in there. And take home some notes on how to get that vibe in case we're ever asked to. I do that for fun anyway, so why not post it so other people can learn too? The show is called Actually Sounds Like with Jim Lill.
Oh, man,
if you had to
that's
tell someone
cool.
about it, I'd describe it as listening to music with a professional musician and celebrating the details we notice. The video version will be on the Actually Sounds Like YouTube page, and the audio version will be on all the podcast apps. Rapid fire.
Man.
Jim, are you going to sell your super awesome, super accurate EQ plugin? I'm
Yes,
glad
do
you
it.
asked. No,
No.
I'm not. I don't know how to do that. I know that this works 100% perfectly on one computer in this entire universe. I
Hey,
don't know
we'll-
how to
we'll
make
do
it
it.
work on everyone else's computer.
Jim, I don't know your email. I don't think. Maybe I do. We will put your plugin out for you. And let me know. If you see this, pipeline audio at AIXDSP.com, I'll be happy to do that. I think AP Mastering would probably put this out for you. Any of my friends would put this out for you. I'm going to try and email you, but if you see this video, let me know. We'll put this EQ out for you. And the other thing you did too, as well.
And I don't know how to deal with anti-piracy stuff, but are you Waves? Are you Universal Audio? Do you think that people would buy this plugin? Get a hold of me. It's a good...
I'm just going to write this in the comments right now. I guess the real Neve sound is the friends we made along the way. Man, I'm not sure. Yeah, this thing is going to light up. I got Tonewood watching this. Oh, man. Don't tell Beato. Yeah, see? Even Rick Beato, man. Beato only has other Freemasons on his channel. Come on, you guys. Oh, man. All right. Yeah. Hey, look, dude, we will put this plugin out for you.
Good sounding EQ. Are you saying that Ocean Way and other expensive studios are worthless? No! Plenty of reasons to like big studios that have nothing to do with
look,
their
I think I have
consoles
Jim
sounding
Lill's,
special. Are you saying that expensive preamps are scams? No, they sound great, but inexpensive ones can sound the same. So hopefully people who are paying extra are doing it for the extra features or workflow or because it looks cool and feels cool and not because they think just passing signal through it gives their music the Neve sound, because as it turns out, that's not really a thing. Are you saying that expensive preamp builders are scammers?
He
No,
did put
they
his
don't
email
know.
address up.
They aren't asking the questions I'm asking, so they haven't found the answers I've found. Specifically the psychoacoustics and blind listening stuff. I watched your video.
Hey, some of these guys have tested this. They know that they're selling crap, or they know that they sound the same, but they still believe there's something there.
Oh, I hear a difference, and it's subtle, and subtle changes are big difference makers. Check out that psychological trick. The number of times I've seen people attach their identity to a piece of gear, talk about how it's a big difference maker, get shown an actual comparison where it's not a big difference maker, then walk it back by saying it's subtle, and they get away with not admitting they were wrong or changing their minds about anything, while also implying that it's the other person's problem that they don't hear a difference, because it's their inexperience or lack of skill that's keeping them from hearing what the pro hears. Then they build the importance of the gear back up by saying that it's all in the subtleties, or subtle changes make a big difference. Diabolical. Weak. Subtle literally means not big. If anyone says something is subtle, then that means doesn't matter until every single other thing that is not subtle is 100% accounted for. In other words, if you don't have a preference for
mic choices, mic placements, drum sizes, tuning, muffling, cymbals, pickups, pickup positions, amp circuit, amp settings, cab geometry, speakers, acoustic guitar body size, string age, pan positions, reverb send levels, volume fader level,
then you can't have a preference for what preamp you use. All not subtle things are more important than all subtle things. Thank you. What about?
All right, I just emailed Jim Lil. We did actually talk before about the audio myth busting with Ethan Weiner on Glenn's channel. What did I say? I'm not sure if you got to see the video with me and Ethan. You're fighting a good fight, and I'd love to have you on one or many of these. How can we get a hold of you? Well, I just emailed him. Hopefully this gets to him. Let me just tell him. Awesome, man. You know, I'm actually working on another plugin right now. You know, we're getting our one that's kind of destroyed my software company out finally. I've been playing with it a lot. I can't wait to show you guys. It's killing me not to, but I'm actually working on another plugin, guitar synth plugin right now myself. And but you know, I'm looking for what's next. And hey, we're very happy to put this out, Jim. Let me know.
What about? I had an engineer once tell me that his boss told him that phase differences in frequencies above 20 kilohertz can combine in ways that affect frequencies under 20 kilohertz, and that's the sound of a console. This is just made up. It's based on literally nothing true. Humans can't hear relative phase changes in different frequency ranges because of the principle of wave superposition. Individual waves combine to form the final wave that hits your eardrum, and they can all ride on top of each other. And while relative phase changes can make the final wave look different under an oscilloscope, it doesn't make it sound different when it reaches our brains. And it would take me time and energy to load up a bunch of signal generators with a bunch of sine waves and bounce multiple copies of them with different flipped phases and do 100 rounds of an ABX test to show that it can't be heard, even if it was in the human hearing range. And this guy was talking about what happens outside of the human hearing range. But I'm not going to do that for every sci-fi fairy tale that gets conjured or repeated by someone who isn't willing to bring any amount of evidence themselves. It takes no effort to make something up.
Jim's been the nice Southern gentleman in all of his videos, but this one, man, he's swinging a stick here.
You can use big words and try to say something that feels kind of good, and people who look up to you will just go, huh, and store it away and not question it, and then later repeat it themselves in a social situation for social points. This video could have ended 5 minutes in when I recorded every instrument through the Neve and the Scarlett, and they sounded the same. But I went the extra mile and had enough respect to give a bunch of the other mechanistic theories a chance to show themselves. And in the end, what did you hear?
Some people want money, some people want fame, a 40-foot boat in a private plane, caviar on a China plate. But if I get a good stretch of interstate, then I don't need a Rolex, you don't need diamonds, we just need a day to waste a free time on. So come on in until the weekend's done. I need you in a car that...
Man, he can make people a lot more mad than I ever could. His reach is way more. Look at this, man. 194,000 subscribers. That's still criminally undersubscribed, people. Come on. How does this guy only get 194K when all the fake gurus out there get 5 billion subscribers, and there's just not enough views, man. This is but look, 1,000 comments already. My video probably end up with 4 comments if that. So like, this guy is criminally undersubscribed. Come on.
I just need you in a car that runs.
As long as I got my bike parts and guitar picks, I'm happy. I don't need it. This guy needs your money. He needs to make these videos. This is awesome. So please, more subscribers for Jim Lil. All right. So that's my morning. I have a lot of other stuff to fix in a second, so I'm gonna see you guys later. this wasn't the video I was planning on making today, but I'm so glad it came out. I know he was talking about it a long time ago, I think on his microphone video, but thank you, Jim. That was awesome. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I think that is the most people I've ever had on a stream at the same time. I'll see you.